Kathleen, your takeaways.
Well, it's exactly as expected. As you pointed out, doing a 50 basis point rate hike is still substantial. And this is what they said in November. You know, it's been a 3-month interim since the RBNZ's last meeting. At that last meeting, they did the big hike. They did the 75. Now they've downshifted to 50. They said then that they expect inflation to peak at 5.5%. Very significant that with inflation seeming to level off at 7.2% year over year. The RBN said it expected it to get up to 7.5% in the fourth quarter. Not quite as hot, not quite as high, still far above the target that is 1 to 3%. They want it probably right in the middle up there. They've got a long way to go and simulate that more rate hikes are needed. Core inflation's too high. That's another headline that's crossed. All of these are on the RBN's mind. And of course, in an hour, Governor Orr, Adrian Orr, head of the RBN, said, and his team, his chief economist and a couple other members will be going to their press conference, and we'll hear a lot more, not just about what they did today, but what they expect to do next.
Yep, and we're seeing the Kiwi pop on the back of this as well. So seemingly it's been interpreted as hawkish comments, Kathleen. Just some more from this statement. They said they were considering an increase of 50 or 75, but they did resort to that 50. They talked about near-term inflation expectations remain elevated. Labor shortages remain significant constraint right now. But they did reach that consensus here. People moving jobs at an elevated pace and still sees recession starting in the second quarter of 2023. Prices for goods likely to spike in coming weeks, and they're going to look through short-term output variations. Kathleen, this still remains to be a central bank that is very aggressive, and in fact, even more hawkish, it seems, in some ways, to many central banks across the G10.
They're sticking with it. They're saying inflation's high. We don't want to become entrenched. You know, wages are still rising in New Zealand, and they don't want to let this become something that doesn't go away. Now, those references you just made to looking through short-term output and price pressures, this is very significant. As you know, Cyclone Gabrielle has wreaked havoc. There's going to be billions of dollars that need to be spent. And instead of the government giving even a subtle hint to the RBN, said, you know, maybe you should take it easy. Maybe you should slow down rate hikes because this is going to hurt the economy. We're going to have to spend a lot of money. On the other hand, they did not at all. Grant Robertson, the finance minister, saying early in the week that the same phrase the RBN said could look through, and then again saying their responsibility is to fight inflation. They have given the RBNZ a green light to do its job. There's no pushing back. And I think this will be one of the big questions that's asked at the press conference. What do you see doing it to inflation? What do you see doing it to growth? How this will affect the budget and more. So these are the kinds of things traders are going to be looking at, and what their forecasts are for inflation in the economy. That's going to be a big issue for the markets because that's going to give more guidance about what could happen to the currency and to bond yields.
And I guess broadly speaking for central banks, Kathleen, is now the risk that these central banks may be slowing their tightening cycle too soon rather than going too far. Is that kind of where consensus is now? I think
that's a question people are going to be raising. In fact, the Federal Reserve has already seemed to indicate that there's some kind of internal debate. Did we downshift to 25 too soon? Are we going to have to move back up to 50? They're going to be meeting again soon, too. And I was just talking to someone who's been watching central banks for years and years over in Singapore. And he was saying that what we see in the past, the RBNZ goes in a direction, and then after a while, some other, especially these big G10 central banks, often seem to be kind of following in their footsteps. So again, another reason why everyone's going to be watching what comes out of this press conference very, very closely.